It's funny, but the cool thing about being a photojournalist is you end up at places you know well. In this case, my old school. And today, I'm with Miss Massachusetts, who's reading books to first graders at Kearney Academy. The best way of photographing something like this is to become as invisible as possible, as quickly as possible. And the only way to do that is take a lot of photographs so that they get used to the idea that the shutter is pointed at something they don't quite understand. Look for interest vantage points like this one here. I'm trying to get a general photograph of how involved these kids are with Miss Massachusetts reading the books. But ultimately, you gotta look for the special moment. And just when you think it's over, it never really is.
Good morning. And it is a fine morning indeed. Happened to be driving by and I noticed that the folks at the Community Boating Center in the south end of New Bedford were installing their docks. And on such a fine morning, I could not help myself but to stop and get some photos. This is Clark's Cove, and if you ask me, it's the undiscovered coolness in New Bedford. I mean, and one of the reasons that most people never see Clark's Cove is because of the hurricane barrier. It's almost, unless you live here in one of these small homes, you really don't know what happens behind the barrier. So, obviously there's a beach over there, but you just never look in that direction. You always look in this direction. Anyway, let's go get some photos.
Well, look here. This is something you don't see every day. Me on the opposite side of the camera. Big thank you to Ricardo Farias, who invited me to be his guest on his show, the Hora Quente, on the Portuguese Channel. It's so awesome to have the opportunity of reaching out and to the Portuguese community in this case, in my native language, an attempt at inspiring them to see their world just a little bit differently. If I can ever pass that passion along, and I've done plenty of talks, I'm always jumping at the opportunity. Thank you, Ricardo. It's Friday, it's wet, it's miserable, and that only means one thing. To photograph people getting soaked, you need to be out there, you need to get soaked yourself. Look for the perfect moment, anticipate things. You see this woman with the umbrella? Look, between the buildings, that's when you get her. It creates the contrast that sets her and the umbrella out from the cobblestones. Another two I noticed, I maneuvered into position to create the perfect composition. Something that takes advantage of the puddles in the foreground, the cobblestones, and again between the buildings to create the contrast. Patience is a virtue, but ultimately, if you just spend enough time, you'll get cool moments like this. Or this. I can tell you that umbrella was just flying around. And it's always the same story. Just when you think you're done, it isn't. I heard about a car that drove off into the water. So there you go. On Thursday, I shot a piece on a fishing boat being unloaded at the base display auction house in New Bedford Harbor. See that fish right there? That's haddock. And that's what is made into fish fillets that you eat at major chain restaurants across the country. New Bedford Harbor is still the #1 port in the country, and these are the guys that keep it flowing. I love black and white. Every chance I get, I go back. It's such a pure medium, just perfect for this type of work.